So the deal goes through. We get our car and our house in Woodstock, and we're living in Woodstock, and we're touring. And Woodstock was a great time to live in Woodstock. I mean, it was all, the band, Dylan, all these music people were living there then, and it was really great. And we used to go to parties and hang out with Paul Butterfield. Hang out. Became friends with Paul Butterfield and hanging out at the bars there, and parties with Maria Muldaur and Bonnie Raitt and jamming, and it was just a cool place. And we had a really great house with a cathedral ceiling, a Volvo station wagon, and and we used to go on the road like 3 days a week, 4 days a week, and go all the way to LaGuardia Airport, drop off the car, go on tour, come back, go back up to Woodstock to our house, and it was just great. And during this time, we also started to record our next record. And we recorded the record and we did get to work with Ron Frangipani, and we worked all of that out. And a guy named Brooks Arthur, who's a very famous guy, and he owned the studio called 914, which has now just been declared a landmark, actually. And it was a real hot place to record then, and we used all these great musicians. We, the best A team back then, and it was the kind of place like we would show up at 12 o'clock in the afternoon to record all day into the evening, and Bruce Springsteen would be coming out because him and Clarence and all those guys, they would record at night when everybody was sleeping, and they would, and Lou Reed, Janis Ian, Melanie, and everybody was recording there. It was a real hot place, and we were doing some great tracks with some great musicians, and everything was going along pretty good. But for some reason, our musicians weren't getting paid, or there was some kind of thing, so we kept on getting stopped, and everybody else went on and did their records and put their records out, and we were just still doing our record because people weren't getting paid, and then they were, and then we would be okay, and then we would do some more tracks. So it was really kind of a rough time, and the diner next door changed hands like 3 times while we were recording at 914. I mean, it went on for about 2 years, and in the meantime, we were still touring, and that was good. But and we did this great record. So Peter, who Neighborhood Productions, signed over our record to Capitol Records. And in the middle of all of this, we're waiting around for the record to come out. We're trying to figure out what to do, and but we're still playing, we're still gigging. We played the Schaefer Festival in Central Park, which was a really hot place. We used to play every year and open up for people. But anyway, so in the meantime, Dennis he made me leave Woodstock because I loved Woodstock. Woodstock was like a winter wonderland in the winter. It was like a fantasy land. I used to walk to town, hang out with Paul Butterfield at the bar, and just, I don't know, I just loved it there. I just loved the people, loved the scene, but it was kind of crazy because it was the hippie days, and, everybody was sleeping with everybody, and it was crazy. It was just crazy. I wasn't, but and Dennis wasn't, but we were both very attractive, and we had people after us, and I had a lot of men after me up there, and Dennis was real uptight about it. So he made me move back to Queens, and we got an apartment, kind of like a 2-family house, upstairs apartment, and in Queens, and I really didn't want to live there, but I went along with it. I don't even know why. But it turned out the guy under us, his name was Mario, and he was like a drug dealer. And then he used to, phone into our line, put his phone through our line and make all these long distance calls. It was like, and he was this really scary guy. And he had a family that lived with him there, but he was really, when I say Mario, real dark skin and black hair, good looking guy, but the kind of guy you don't want to mess with, right? So he lived downstairs from us, and meanwhile, we're waiting for our record to come out. And anyway, but finally, Peter made a deal with Capitol, and our record came out. And then William Morris put us on tour with the Bee Gees. So we thought, oh wow, everything's going to be cool. So we go, and it was like there was nobody from Capitol Records there. Absolutely nobody from Capitol Records that on any of our gigs. We played in front of 20,000 people a night. We did great, and nobody was there. So it was very depressing, but it looked like our record wasn't going to happen. And it was really, a drag. But, in the middle of all of this, we were really lucky because in the middle of us recording at 914, our producer invited us to a John Lennon session. John and Yoko recording session. So we went to the Hit Factory and met John Lennon and Yoko Ono, and it was great. We got to hang out with them, and Ron introduced John, Yoko, this is Janie and Dennis, Dennis and Janie, this is John and Yoko, and we shook hands and we hung out, and we stayed for the session, and then we got back in the car and went up to Woodstock, and that was a nice moment. But then when Dennis made me move to Queens, it was downhill from there. We went on tour with the Bee Gees, nobody was there. The A&R guy at Capitol got fired that signed our album, and so therefore they didn't push it, and that was the end of that. So that's basically the Woodstock story. There's a lot more to it, but Woodstock was great. I loved Woodstock. I recently actually played with Levon. I actually opened up for Levon Helm before he passed away at the Midnight Ramble up in Woodstock, which is great, and that's going to be another episode. So that's my story about Woodstock. It was a very special place. It was just happening then. It's a beautiful, beautiful artsy city, and town in New York. And it was just at that time, it was just in its really kind of high point. Now it's gotten touristy and whatever. It's not the same kind of place. But anyway, that's the story of Woodstock.